Hi everyone. I'm going to tell you about my experiences as a Lyft driver. I have a really nice car, 2014, and during this time there was a heat wave going on, and where I'm staying there's no air conditioning. And not only that, I didn't have any projects going on. I had nothing going on. So Lyft and Uber was in the news so much, I thought I'd give it a try, and I decided to go with Lyft because Uber wanted me to pay $20 to get a car inspection. I decided I would go with Lyft. One of the things that a lot of my passengers used to ask me was, okay, do you have any good stories to tell about driving for Lyft? And so, I had a few. First, there was a guy who broke his leg playing basketball, and he decided to call it Lyft because he said it was cheaper than an ambulance. And so, yeah, and it was right around the corner, and he said it was faster too. So that was my first kind of unusual story. Now, I always try to drive in the better parts of town, Koreatown, over there in the Fairfax area, West Hollywood, Westwood. I always stayed over there. But I always avoided Beverly Hills because I was told that the passengers in Beverly Hills are so incredibly rude. But I liked Westwood. I liked Westwood a lot. And you know what? I picked up one guy who was semi-famous. He really wasn't famous at all. He just was associated with someone that is semi-famous. And that was one of the ex-husbands of one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. He has since passed away, but when I picked him up, he had cancer. He had been on the show, and his name was Monty Brinson. And when I picked him up, he was just as jolly and happy, but he reeked of cigarette smoke and alcohol. And it was like a Saturday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. He started telling me how he beat cancer. He beat lung cancer. That the doctor gave him some really new medicine, and voila, it's a miracle. Here he is. He's arisen from the dead almost. But unfortunately, he developed brain cancer a few months after I dropped him off, and he passed away, I think, in January. But where I dropped him off was in Bel Air at Paris Hilton's parents' house, and it looked like a huge castle. When I drove up on the grounds, all you could see were all these service people walking around with uniforms on, carrying things, and it just looked really, really busy. And it looked like a lot of work because the house was huge, and it turned out that that's where he lived, and that's where he was when he passed away, Monty Brinson. That's the only semi-famous person that I ever picked up in my 2.5 months of driving. Then one of the more touching passengers that I picked up was in Westwood. I had to use the bathroom really bad, and I stopped at a mobile gas station, right? So I go inside, and it turns out there's a lady waiting for the bathroom, right? So there's someone in front of me, and I'm like, hopping around, really have to use the bathroom really bad and stuff. And so she looks at me, and she says, oh, you can go ahead in front of me. I'm just going to wash my hands. So I said, oh, thank you so much. So I go in there and, do my business. I say to her, thank you so much. And so she said, I'm just ordering a Lyft driver right now, so I wasn't in any hurry, so it's fine. I said, oh, I'm a Lyft driver. I said, where do you want to go? And she said, somewhere in West LA. So I turned on my app, she turned on her app, and yeah, I received her, I caught her, okay. And she had a lot of scratch-offs, and that's why she was at the mobile gas station. And she didn't have a car, right? She was getting a Lyft ride. She redeemed her scratch-offs. She got in the car. Now, I had noticed that she spoke really slowly, almost like she had been drinking. I thought maybe she had been drinking. Well, anyway, so she gets in the car, and she starts telling me about herself. And she says, I'm on fentanyl. No, I never heard of fentanyl before. And she says, I take the fentanyl patch. And I said, oh, really? I said, what exactly is fentanyl? What is it for? And she said, it's for pain. She said, it's the strongest pain medicine on the planet. She says it's even more potent than heroin. And she has a prescription for it, and she wears a patch 24/7 of this fentanyl. So I said to her, well, why are you on fentanyl? And she said 3 years ago, when she was 26 years old, she had this boyfriend who was crazy, and they had been drinking, and she passed out, and he seatbelted her into the car, and he drove it off a cliff. with him not in it, okay? And she broke every bone in her body. He was trying to kill her, but she survived. However, she has this excruciating pain that the doctors have told her she will just have to manage and live with for the rest of her life. And she was only 26 at that time. So now the way she manages her pain is by staying constantly sluggish on this fentanyl. And she says whenever she has problems with her medical insurance and she can't get her refill or her fentanyl patches, she has to go out on the streets and get heroin. And she said, but I only inject it in the muscle. And I said, oh, what does that mean? And she said, well, you know, you can't get high when you inject it in the muscle, I guess, as opposed to injecting it in the bloodstream. And I just really felt sorry for her, because here was a person that was going to have to live the rest of her life under the influence of a narcotic. You know, most of the women passengers that I picked up, most of them were happy to have a woman driver. But there was this one woman that said she preferred men drivers. She said she can't stand women drivers because they're not confident, they lose their cool, they're constantly missing their turn or their off-ramp, and they're always flustered, and they always have an attitude. That's what she said about the women drivers. Of course, she said I was the exception. I really did enjoy meeting most of these people. Most of these people led interesting lives and were able to hold interesting conversations, and that made driving them around just a little bit more interesting, right? When I first started driving, I would go to USC, and yeah, you get a lot of calls there, but the students are, some of them are so obnoxious, okay? And I just eventually started avoiding USC, okay? However, of course, there's always exceptions, right? So I get this one young guy. This is a Friday, and they had what's called a prime time pricing going on, which means that the driver was getting paid more than usual because the demand was super high. So this particular Friday afternoon, I get this young guy from USC. He grew up in the United States. He has Pakistani heritage, right? And he's a super hip, super fly, super confident young guy. I guess he's about 21 or something like that. So this particular day took 56 minutes to drive from USC to UCLA. The GPS at the time was taking us through the back streets of Westwood. And that was just a beautiful experience. And it was probably 100 degrees that day. It was sunny, and it was almost like being in heaven, okay? And you know, I couldn't drive fast because there was really bad traffic. I have this really nice kid in the back, right, who is exceptionally mature for his age. And what are we talking about? We're talking about history, one of my favorite subjects. And he tells me, which I didn't even know, that France, back I think in the 1400s, invaded Spain and kicked out the Moors and the Muslim influence and made Spain a Catholic country. I never realized how Spain became a Catholic country. We discussed that for a good hour, and the guy was funny. He was, you know, kind of witty. He was very good looking. But more than that, he was just a mature guy and was able to hold a really interesting conversation. I was paid somewhere around $60 for that particular ride, and he gave me a $20 bill. Then another time, I pick up this guy from Saudi Arabia. I know he was from Saudi Arabia because I asked him where he was from. He told me he was from Saudi Arabia. And this was on a Friday. So he was going to the, is it the mosque? He was going to the mosque to pray. And there's this beautiful temple, or is it mosque? This beautiful Muslim mosque on Washington. And there were people, well, the men go on one side, the women go on the other side. I didn't even know, but it's a new mosque there, and that's where I was taking him, right? I asked him, I said, so where are you from? He tells me Saudi Arabia. So I say to him, oh, I bet seeing a woman drive is something unusual for you, right? He says, ha ha ha, it's true. We don't let women drive in my country. I said, oh, okay. And he said it kind of harshly, but I'm not sure if it was harsh because of his language and the translation into English, because I think Arabic is kind of, can be a harsh language. I don't know, but he left me a tip. Sometimes we have the hardest time finding the passengers, either because of one-way streets or the traffic is really bad, or the passenger moved from where they were when they ordered the ride. But it could be all kind of reasons why we can't find the person, right? I remember one time I was looking for a passenger, so I called her. You have the option to text or call them. So I called her, and so she says, "Oh, should I come outside?" Well, I mean, what did she? I wonder, did she think what I was gonna park my car, look for the address, knock on the door, offer her my arm, and escort her to the car? Yeah. I said, yeah, that would make it easier for me to find you. So this one particular person, I called her, and I said, can you tell me what store you're standing in front of? So she told me, and I went around the corner. I didn't see the store when I went around the corner. So then I called her back. I said, well, here, I'm at XYZ. Where are you in relation to XYZ? And so I guess by then, I don't know what was going on with her, but she goes, you figure it out. Bam! And she hung up on me, right? Now, see, this was in the very beginning of me driving. I was just so determined to do the right thing, right? And so I just made another effort, a big effort to really find them, even though she wasn't going to help me. Now, if she had done that like 4 weeks later, I would have just canceled the call and kept it pushing, all right? And she would have just had to order someone else, okay? And that maybe she would have given more direction to. But anyway, so I went and I finally found them. And they were 2 black chicks, okay? Around my age, probably. Short. So they could be salt and pepper shakers. One was super light skin with a blonde wig on. Another one super dark skin with a black weave on. Or weave, whatever, okay? At any rate, so they had been shopping. It was right across the street from the Beverly Center, and they had a lot of bags, right? So I pull up and I roll the window down and I say, you want to put your bags in the trunk? And I pop the trunk for them. And they said, no, we don't, all nasty and stuff, no. So both of them got in the back seat, and they were not thin ladies, okay? And they were huffing and puffing and had all these bags, and they were trying to get in there, and I didn't do anything because of the way they told me no. While they're getting in the back seat, I get out the car to go and close the trunk because I popped it open assuming that they would want to put their bags in the trunk, right? So as I get out the car, one of them says, I told you we didn't want to put the bags in the trunk. Oh, mean. And I was like, I'm just closing the trunk because I thought you would want to do that. So all I'm doing is closing the trunk. That's what it said. Closing the trunk. That's it. So I get back in the car. The salt shaker, okay, he decides, gives me these detailed directions. Now, mind you, she put the address in the app. The GPS will tell me where to go. In addition to that, she's in an area that I grew up in. I know urban LA like the back of my hand. But I didn't go through all that with her. I let her be nasty. It's on Dinker. D-E-N-K-E-R. You got that? Dinker. I was like, okay, I got it, right? But by now, I'm like, you know what? I have lost all patience. I have nothing to say to her. It's completely silent. I turn on the radio, and I just let them talk among themselves. And hopefully that's all they wanted to do. Oh, yeah, you see my little trusty Lyft light? Well, that thing came in handy when I had to go through a checkpoint. Police didn't even check to see if I was inebriated or high or anything. They just saw my light and they was like, okay, come on, you can go right on through. Go right on through. In fact, you can go through this passing lane. Okay, I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And then I had to go through it again as I had picked up 3 guys that had already started the party. So there was the smell of liquor everywhere. Had to go through the checkpoint. Police remembered me. Again, just passed me right through the passing lane. Did not stop or anything. And one of the guys in the back said, where can I get one of those lights? Where can I get one of those mustache lights? I was like, one time, I picked up this lady. I swear to God, she must have been the oldest lady I ever seen. And she said she wanted to drive for Lyft. I was like, really? Why? And I shouldn't have asked her why, because here I am with all this gray hair too, right? But I mean, I haven't shrunk. I'm a big girl. I'm vital. I got energy, right? But this woman, she didn't have a cane. She didn't have a walker. But it's just a matter of minutes hours, weeks, days. She wanted to know how much money I made, right? And normally, no big deal. I would share that, right? But she was so snotty. And so I just refused to tell her. I mean, she asked me 3 or 4 different ways, and I avoided it 3 or 4 different ways, right? Again, because she kind of annoyed me, I just kept saying to her, why would you want to drive? Because I will tell you this. One time I drove 10 hours straight, again, trying to make certain hours, right? And my hips felt so much pressure from sitting down that long. You know, oh no, it's not. It's a lot of wear and tear. I think it's physically tough. You know, it's like an endurance type of job. So anyway, I just got saying, no, you don't want to do it. You don't need to do it. And she told me she was buying a new car just to do this driving. And when I kept saying, well, why? She was so irritated. She said, for money. Why else? I said, okay, well, if that's the only way, then okay. So this is my last story. I'm going to finish up with this story. Now, I always try to avoid the bar hours because you're dealing with a lot of drunk people. They think they're so funny and so amusing. And I just don't have time for that, okay? I was trying to make a certain number of hours for that week. So I got caught on Saturday working till 12 midnight. 12 midnight is usually when the party is getting started. So people aren't usually wasted by then, right? It usually takes a little longer than that. But I picked up a couple from their house and I was taking them to a bar. In fact, there was the night when Ronda Rousey got beat up, lost her fight. Remember that night? And I was busy like crazy taking people to sports bars and whatnot. Anyway, it was that night. The fight was over. Ronda Rousey lost and got beat up really bad. But I got this call from this couple, white couple, young. They looked to be in their 20s, late 20s. I was picking them up at their house somewhere in West Covina. And then just taking them about 5 miles, it was really a short ride, about 5 miles away to a bar. And when they got in the car, I could tell instantly, I could smell it, that they had started the party already, okay? And they were talking about the fight and Ronda Rousey and this and that and bloop, bloop, de bloop. I can't really remember all they were talking about. It was a bunch of whatever, nothing important. But as we got closer to the bar, the woman that's sitting in the back scoots up and grabs one of my ponytails and says, I want to touch the dreadlock. I want to touch the dreadlock. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was just pulling up in the driveway of the bar that they were going to, and I think she knew that, and she was getting herself ready to get out the car. And so then I guess she saw my ponytail and couldn't resist. And then she gave me a $10 bill and a nasty kiss on my cheek.